everybody, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic, and welcome back. As you can see, I'm giving ourselves the Kyler Murray treatment, because today we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals. And unlike Kyler Murray, it won't be a short video, but as you can see, I'm doing the same treatment like he does. This really hurts my knees, being this short. Okay, so I got off my knees and went back into my chair, but we are continuing our deep dive into the 2024 NFL season, as we are a few short days away from the NFL draft. So there'll be a lot of videos probably, coming out at the same time. Won't be just once a day, it'll be a lot of videos. So we're now took to the NFC West, and we're going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals, a franchise very similar to the Cleveland Browns, where you just kind of root for them, but not like a charity, like a Make-A-Wish Foundation type of charity, but kind of like, come on. I mean, how many of you that weren't fans of the Steelers were rooting for the Cardinals to win their Super Bowl against them before, somehow the Steelers pull a magic out of a hat and won the game? Now, if you're a Steeler fan, you're probably just giving me the biggest middle finger, and quite frankly, I welcome it. But if you're a Cardinal fan, I kind of really want, especially more for Larry Fitzgerald and Kurt Warner, than literally anyone else on that franchise. Plus, it was in Tampa, so it was kind of like right next door to where I live, so I was kind of rooting for them, kind of like, hey, some history. We can see we're going to host the first Super Bowl for this franchise in its entire history. And the whole argument of which of the last 13 teams are going to win their first Super Bowl is fluctuated from the Falcons to the Panthers to the Cardinals. I think now is the Buffalo and the Bengals are probably the top two teams that are viewed as potentially going to win their first Super Bowl. While Arizona has sadly been the lovable, and just lovable, really. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals season, I had them at a 7-10. I felt like the Seahawks were always going to be a threat more superior than they are. The Rams are going to be the Rams. And then the 49ers were just the 49ers. Like, everyone else basically had a reputation beyond just playing good football. And the Cardinals were a team very similar to how another West team, kind of like the Raiders, where they're like, no one really expects us to do anything. So if we can pull a few upsets here, a few upsets there, maybe we can be considered a little bit more. But at the end of the day, no one is even considering the Cardinals are somehow going to get the 7th seed and sneak them way into the playoffs. But you guys went 8-9. I'm actually really impressed you went 8-9, and not in a condescending type of way. I'm more of the sense of you guys went 8-9, and 1 or 2 wins here or there probably could have, changed the whole season. And it really, really, really emphasizes Kyler Murray, love him or hate him, criticize him for his height or not. He is the only real reason the Cardinals have any shot of potentially making the playoffs. I mean, the year where basically he was MIA for like 90% of the year, they were atrocious. They were almost to the point where you felt bad for the first-time head coach getting to potentially try to, right the ship when there was like no captain at all, and no one's willing to take up the level of captain. I mean, you got other players stepping up, but it wasn't just saying because the stability of a quarterback, even the one that's heavily been, scrutinized and not criticized like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but just kind of like picked on by everyone else, not just for his height, obviously, but because just, is he really good? He's the first overall pick. He's short. Is he really good? First overall pick. Is he really? So, and me being a short guy that actually did play quarterback for 10 seconds of my life, I can say I support short quarterbacks everywhere. So yes, that's kind of how I feel favoritism for him. Plus, I think Kyler Murray is one of those athletes where you're just kind of like, if he just gets to the NFC championship game, he might be able to say, I'm considered one of the better Cardinal quarterbacks in history. Maybe even dethroning the great Jake Plummer? Kind of. But in the end, that is where I feel the season kind of fluctuate. And I'm just going to say it, and I don't have anything to defend myself, so I'm just going to embrace it. Does anybody feel pretty good about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s first rookie season? I mean, Brian Thomas for the Jaguars, Malik Neighbors for the Giants. It felt like every other wide receiver, heck, even some that weren't considered that great, that were third or fourth round picks, had a little bit more of an impact. Hell, Brock Bowers, a tight end, had more of an impact on a team that has no quarterback or identity on the offense. He broke records. And they got Marvin Harrison Jr., which I can't help, it's more of the name of Marvin Harrison's son, more impacting, but let's be real. Marvin Harrison has given more respect to his dad, unlike a certain other guy who's in Los Angeles named Bronny. So, Cardinals, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just kind of feel like maybe we had too much expectation of Marvin Harrison. Maybe we did. I did have him as my MVP on the offense in the preseason, so we'll see. But let's go to your best game. And the best game, I think, took place Week 7 versus Los Angeles Chargers. The biggest reason makes this game is that if you look at the Cardinals season, there's a lot of game where you just go, eh. So a lot of it comes down to who you played against. And the Chargers, yes, it was Week 7, so it was not real. It was just right in the middle of the season. And maybe we're trying to finish. And the game wasn't, glamorous, 17-15 kind of game. Honestly, you probably could have chalked it up as a glorified field goal game, which basically it was, except for like one touchdown here and there. But it was the best game for the Cardinals, even though the Chargers were kind of also trying to find an identity before later in the season they finally found it in their defense and better coaching styles than they had in the past. But the Cardinals' best game, it was because the level of competition was higher. The Chargers were still trying to find their groove, but we're calling a little more in hindsight more than at the time of it. Because if you look at the Arizona Cardinals season, I'm just looking at the schedule right here in front of me. Their wins were against, the Rams, which that was week 2, and I actually don't count the first 4 weeks. The 49ers by 1 point at 49ers, but that's more hindsight, like thinking the Niners probably weren't as good as we thought they were. And then the Chargers, Bears, Jets, Patriots, and then Niners again, but the Niners are basically just saying F the season. So when you look at it, the hindsight added on to the evaluation of these teams, I have to go with the Chargers. It still made it through the season. The Chargers had way more expectation than the Cardinals ever had the entire season. And even though the Chargers did eventually make the playoffs and non-surprisingly charge it up by bombing themselves in the first round, hindsight goes to the Cardinals, their best game. Maybe not statistically, maybe not scoreboard. Looking at it, it was 395 to 326, so roughly even. Time of possession was heavily in favor. So a lot of it was heavily in favor of the Chargers side. Nearly over 10 minutes of time of possession versus them. And a 2-1 turnover favor. So it wasn't really great statistically, but hindsight, we're going to give it to the Cardinals because it was the better opponent they played all year. Now we go to your worst game. And very similar to the best game. The worst game was how it ended up. And the worst game I'm evaluating will take place Week 16 at Carolina, the overtime game. Granted, it was a great game. If you were just a fan of football, especially NFL, there's a reason why I say it like that. This game was great. It was high scoring. I'm not much of a high scoring type of guy, but sure. It went to overtime. There were players that made statements, that made impacts. Everyone was playing at a high level. It was a high scoring affair from the beginning. At halftime, it was 2017 at halftime. So you were kind of hoping that it does not have a standstill in the second half and eventually end up being like 23-17 final. No, it kept going, and the biggest credit is the Cardinals' comeback in the fourth. After the Panthers went up by 10, the Cardinals literally had to get 2 drives in the final second just to lead it to overtime. And it wasn't like a simple, it was a 58-yard field goal to make it by a guy that is nowhere near Justin Tucker or Harrison Buckner. So it was nobody worth of that stability of that guy can make 58. It was, he's an NFL kicker, he should make a 58-yard field goal, especially in crunch time on the road. The Panthers are not a great team. But late in the season, they had this momentum of, we're going to end the season strong. We might get some L's, but we're not going to take those L's lying down. And yes, Cardinals were also trying to like keep their playoff hope. That's what I said. This was a game that they probably should have won to kept their small playoff hopes alive, because they went from 7-7 to 7-8, and they ended up beating 8-9. So they could have been at least had a winning season, which I think would have been a major step up now that Kyler Murray's officially there with the Cardinals, and kind of showcase the expectations you're wanting for it. Even though I hate to keep harping on this, Marvin Harrison Jr. did not look like the guy I think they wanted to, especially compared to the other rookie wide receivers that were drafted that were also considered great. So I feel like it's hard. I'm not trying to bash on the dude, but when they talk about you as the number one receiver guarantee every single mock draft, from local YouTubers to ESPN to MSNBC, whatever, you were always viewed as the guy to go first. That even some people were like, maybe Malik Neighbors should be considered number one. And in a weird way, Malik Neighbors kind of carried the Giants team more than you did. So I'm not saying, I mean, Marvin Harrison's stats in this game, he wasn't the leading receiver. James Conner was basically the offense. He had 117 yards rushing and 49 yards on 4 receptions. So not even Marvin Harrison Jr. was considered the leading receiver for the team. Now, I'm just doing a quick little peek here. Harrison had 4 catches for 39 yards. But the game went to overtime in a 36-30 game. I don't know. It's unnecessary expectation. I mean, for all we know, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s next sophomore year is going to be his blowout year. You know, like 1,600 yards and like 12 touchdowns. We're all going to shut up about it. It happens. But that to me is the worst game, because he probably should have won it. The Panthers considered it, especially when the playoff level was there. So it's the worst game for the worst timing of your season. But there's other games I can see, obviously. But this was definitely the worst because of timing. We're going to go to your MVP. And your MVP going to go to the guy who, by the time of this recording, just got paid. And that goes to the man himself, McBride, a tight end. Very few players on this channel will have tight ends as their MVP, and I'm kind of foreshadowing some future ones. But for those of us that remember the time of great tight ends, I remember Jeremy Shockey was dominating at the U. And then he went to the Giants, and he was still dominating as if he played for the U. And then, you know, he won a Super Bowl here and there. Then he went to New Orleans, won a Super Bowl. Shockey will always be viewed as one of my favorite tight ends in the NFL and also in college. And then also, then you got other players like Antonio Gates, former basketball star, comes to the NFL, and dominates. Tony Gonzalez, who can forget the great Tony Gonzalez? And then you have players like Jimmy Graham. Then you got Kellen Winslow Jr. Say what you want to say. He was considered one of the better tight ends. I'm not going to say his character off the field was great. I'm just saying on the field here. Let's keep focus here. And then you see tight ends becoming basically just heavy set receivers, that some of them, Vernon Davis, another great tight end from Maryland who went to the 49ers and actually became the offensive threat. So Gronkowski, let's forget about Travis Kelce, you know, Taylor Swift's boyfriend. That's all we know him for. So great tight ends all the way around the board, and McBride getting paid one. And this is the guy that had, listen to the stats. He had 111 receptions, not targets, 111 receptions out of 147 targets. Nearly 1,200 yards, and only 2 touchdowns, because for most of the season he had no touchdown, but was making those yardage. The number 2 receiver was Marvin Harrison Jr., who played one game more than McBride, had 62 receptions for 885 yards. And nearly 3 times the amount of touchdowns. That's trying to let you know, McBride had nearly double the amount of receptions compared to it, and they both had over 115 targets each. So McBride to me is the MVP, mainly because he didn't get the touchdown statistics that made fantasy owners drool and salivate, but he was the reliable tight end, like most tight ends should be. Physical, reliable, and incredibly more athletic than their body frame should dictate. The grade I will give the Arizona Cardinals 8-9. There were 1 or 2 wins and they probably should have gotten. It wasn't a failure. I will say it's a success because compared to last year, and quite frankly, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say I know they didn't make the playoff. I know this is kind of going, but it's my channel and I am God of my channel. I'm giving the Arizona Cardinals a success. I think this season was a success. No one thought they were going to go to the playoffs, and they were 1 win away, potentially 2 for potentially having a 10-win season. And I think the Cardinals just proved that with a new head coach and Murray working together tandem, they can do it. And I believe Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to thrive in his sophomore year. I don't believe he's going to suffer a sophomore slump. I think he's going to suffer a super sophomore sensation. SS. Oh, no. Stop that abbreviation right there. But I believe the Cardinals will be better. So I'm going to give them a success because no one thought they'll be this close to a playoff berth. And they're 1-2 win away, and it proved head coach and Murray can work together as peanut butter and jelly. So I'll come into the NFL draft. Pass rush, sack quarterbacks. I can't think of the last time Arizona Cardinals had a very consistent pass rush. I always feel like most of their success took place outside of it. Some of the defensive players they have picked up have not really developed. To be honest with you, I can't think on the top of my head, because I'm not a Cardinal fan, to think of what was the most impressive Cardinal defensive player that's not named, Patterson or Tyrann Mathieu. So, I can't think of just a pass rusher. And some of the ones they have tried to turn into pass rushers have not developed into pass rushers. So to me, for the Cardinals, I'm going to say pass rushers. And the players I have picked up will be Mike Green from Marshall, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, and Malik Williams from Georgia. I believe Malik Williams might be picked up before he gets to that point, but if someone sits there, I feel like he's primed to take. I think Mike Green is going to be a diamond in the rough steal for anyone who picks him up, but I believe for the Cardinals to sack quarterbacks against other opponents, they will need to get young, talented power and hopefully hit this time, so therefore they can sack the Staffords, the Darnold, and Brock Purdy, and anyone else in the NFC, because I feel like sacking quarterbacks will help out the rest of the defense. Therefore, in case a secondary has problem with coverage, a resilient pass rush led by a young sensation. We all seen what TJ Watt has done. We saw what JJ Watt was supposed to do that in the later in his career, but he kind of didn't do it as well they wanted to. Plus, it was the late part of his career, but he chose Arizona for reasons. So for me, Arizona will need to get on a pass rusher to help make up the defensive, and the offense, I think, will thrive with the second year of Marvin Harrison. So that now officially is the Arizona Cardinals end. We're done with the Arizona Cardinals. Now we're going to move down to the NFC West. They have not been this low in quite some time. So let's go to San Francisco and let's make fun of, let's reevaluate what the hell happened to the 49ers. Is it, the time of the month? Is it curses? Is it, the lease on the contract expire? Is it John Lynch's fault? I don't know. It could be a lot of things why the 49ers fell off this year. So let's talk about them. So next time we're going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers in the next video. Until then, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you so very much for watching.